The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
I'm 100% appreciating all of the Boba Fett backstory. I think that's really interesting, but I'm not really sure where the current day storyline is going. And if they only have
you're right.
Episodes.
The flashbacks are more interesting than his current.
They are, and I was always, because I loved Boba Fett, and I was shattered. I was shattered when he died in Return of the Jedi. So I was always thinking of him, if they were to do like a standalone, it would be more of his like adventures as like a bounty hunter in the galaxy.
That's why everyone's complaining about this, because it's like, why is he such a wussy? How come he's not such a badass? I'm like, but that's because we built him up in our minds. He only has like what, 7 minutes of screen time.
But to be fair, I think they are trying really hard to make him a good guy and to make him likable. So
I don't know if they're making him a good guy so much, but they're certainly making him a person who has been changed by his experience, which is understandable if you have almost been
but that's not what you want as the most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy.
But
I'll be fair. I will hear both sides, and I will not punish anyone.
He's King Solomon over there now. But I think the problem is that the Mandalorian dropped first, so that is your badass guy now. So you can't have, otherwise, then why even bring back Boba Fett?
Well, Boba Fett's the OG. It doesn't matter who dropped first. Boba Fett's the OG.
I know. This week on the show, when Mando came in, he looks at the guy and his hand sort of twitched toward his sidearm, and Chris was like, "Say it," and then he goes, "I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold."
Right. Yeah, he's our Clint Eastwood, man. He's.
But
how's he gonna get it? Look, we're already getting ahead of ourselves because we're not even talking about this show for another 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But how is he going to get his bounty back when he only has like a one-seater ship now?
I know, that's what I wondered. I was like, he wants a Razor Crest because in the Razor Crest he has space to store the bodies.
Yeah.
My guess
he'll
is
get
that
one. He'll
get a bigger ship that this one can dock into, and now he's got like two. It's an action playset. Thank you.
And he's got a little chainmail outfit to give to Grogu.
I know, his little mithril shirt.
We're already giving it away. There will be somebody. There's plenty of people on Facebook that complain. I go onto this Star Wars group and you guys ruin it. Not everybody gets to see it the first week. It's like, then don't go on a group. Don't.
I know that was, not that I'm on social media a ton anymore, but I really very specifically stayed off social media the week that Scream came out until I could actually, get to the theater and watch it, because that was important to me and I didn't want anybody to spoil anything for me. So it's like, I just made a decision to stay away from public forums.
You have to. Yeah. You don't want to be spoiled. I
think that if you don't want to be spoiled by stuff, you can't expect everyone else in the world to accommodate you.
There are people out there who go out of their way to spoil it for people. They get a certain sense of glee out of it. But that's not us.
I think that anyone who listens to this podcast knows that it's very difficult to review a movie without spoiling the plot.
Yeah.
So
some more than others, but yes.
That's funny you mentioned that, because there is a podcast I listened to and they did review the new Scream. And I refused to listen to it until obviously after we watched it and reviewed it.
Right.
But they decided not to spoil anything. And it was like they brought nothing to the table. They
had nothing to talk about.
Yeah. That's the thing, is you can't talk about No Way Home without giving away that it's got 3 Spider-Men in it.
And that Galactus shows up. It's awesome.
Don't make up stuff, Jeff.
What? Why? Everyone else on the internet does.
But I really want to know how much is that chainmail gherkin going to drag on little Grogu? Like, is it too long? Did they make it just the right length, or is it going to drag behind him like with a trail?
I can't wait. This is what's going to save him from Kylo Ren.
And what if he's grown? What if he's grown?
Oh, listen.
Yeah, but that would be. But
even Yoda, look how big Yoda is compared.
They better not make him grow. Because he's, however many years old, right? His aging process is very slow. He's not like Will Robinson. So he's 3.
I
don't want a Teen Groot situation here where he's.
Oh no, we can't have that. He's got to stay little forever. And now he has a jumper seat. He's got his own little section on the ship.
But that little package was like a little Yoda head.
It looked like a Yoda head.
Yeah, they did that on purpose.
Yeah, of course.
That was I think they got the maids from the Disney hotels when they leave you the towels.
The little towels.
They got a professional in to do that. Let me tell you.
Listen, we need a head that looks like Yoda. I'm all over it. So there you go. So we can't talk about Boba Fett again until the show's over. So
okay.
That's all you get from us for now. Actually, you're lucky you got that. Usually, Jim cuts all this stuff out.
Do we have news this week?
Do we? Well, what are we talking about before we do
we?
Deputy Dewey? Should we tell them what we're actually discussing before we get into news? Yeah, that's usually how the format goes.
So we're talking about Don't Look Up, and we're also talking one of the all-time classics ever, Dr. Strangelove.
So the Criterion Blu-ray, it's really it's very clean. It's very, very crisp. We can get more into this, but I just want to mention really quick the absolutely awesome special features that this disc came with, which is that when you open it up, there's an envelope that says, Plan R on it. Mm-hmm. And then you open the envelope and inside there's an essay about the film, but it's it looks like a directive, and there's a great little booklet that has an ad on the back that says, have you ever seen a commie drink a glass of water? And there's a tiny Holy Bible and Russian phrase book. And it comes with a lot of cool special features. So if you're a fan of the book, and there's a ton of special features on the disc, like a zillion supplements. So if you're a fan of this film, I really recommend that you get the Criterion Blu-ray because it's pretty awesome.
It's funny because Don't Look Up's got a ton of extra stuff, not on Netflix, but they have their own podcast right now talking about the making of this show. So there's a lot of supplemental stuff out there as well. But let's do a little news, and then we'll get into the end of the world. I held off on this from last week only because we were pretty heavy news-wise. But Daniel Radcliffe has been tapped to play Weird Al Yankovic in a biopic. Interesting, right? I don't think I've ever heard him do an American accent.
Oh, yeah, I've heard him do an American accent. He's actually, I have no question that he can do this. He's quite a good actor. I just think it's interesting that they're doing a Weird Al biopic.
Why
now?
not?
I don't know. Just seems like.
Does he have an autobiography or anything that they're basing this on?
Not that I'm aware of. I do know he is involved in it though, because he's posted on his media accounts that he is currently making a movie. So whether this is going to be a tongue-in-cheek biopic, or
I'm sure it's going to be some sort of absurdist take on his life, right?
He's got a very interesting, with his parents and them basically buying him an accordion, and now he's hung his hat on that for quite some time. I think the man's a genius. He is a national treasure. So I will be first in line to see this, and we will be talking about it eventually. Second news item is Peter Dinklage was on the Mark Maron podcast, WTF, and he was speaking about Disney's live action remake of Snow White. And he had some choice words for Disney, because while he was actually lauding the fact that they had cast a Latina actress as Snow White, I don't know this girl, Rachel Zegler. She was in West Side Story. But he goes on to say, literally, no offense to anyone, but I was taken a little aback when they were very proud to cast a Latina actress as Snow White, but you're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Take a step back and look at what you're doing there. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but then you're still making this effing backward story about 7 dwarves living in a cave together. What the F are you doing, man? Have I done nothing to advance the cause for my soapbox? I guess I'm not loud enough. So he was.
But they don't live in a cave.
No, they don't.
Work in a cave.
They live in that. They work in a cave. Nice catch, by the way. So I guess Disney did respond, and they're like, to avoid reinforcing stereotypes from the original animated film, we are taking a different approach with these 7 characters and have been consulting with members of the dwarfism community. So take that for what it is. I have heard rumors that these characters will be CG. They will not be.
That's even worse.
Right.
That's like saying.
But I don't know. Are you going to go like a Deep Roy kind of interpretation of the Oompa Loompas and Tim Burton's Willy Wonka and just make them shrunken people and not dwarf sized? I don't know. He's got a point.
He definitely has a point. And obviously, like, if you're a dwarf actor, it's challenging enough to find parts that don't stereotype you. And
Right.
Peter Dinklage has been, I think, fortunate throughout his career. He's such a good actor. That
He's phenomenal. Absolutely.
That he's proved that, like, you know, people cast him in parts where, like, the fact that he's a dwarf is not germane to the character. You know, he's not playing a dwarf character. He's playing a character. I think it would be so much worse in a way if they just made like 7 CG characters. That would just be terrible.
You can't totally reinvent this. That just don't do it. If is the bottom line, you know, it would be ridiculous to do this and then change it completely and then make it something that it's not. I'm really on the fence about this because I never thought that they were stereotypical or that they were making fun.
No, I agree with you.
Yes, but I agree it would be a bad thing if they were completely bad if they were CGI, because I'm thinking of all these other, like Time Bandits with a great ensemble cast.
Right. And the fact that they're dwarfs is not necessarily.
It's besides the point. And they could do the same thing here. It could never even be mentioned, you know?
Yes. You could just make it. Well, I mean, it's hard not to mention it when it's in the title, but
right.
He's right, though, that having these stereotypical kind of roles is not great in terms of advancing, you know, the cause.
Right. But if there's any movie that maybe would get a pass, it
celebrates
just a one in the history of the world, it would be this, because you wouldn't want to erase it either.
I think this is a challenging thing. The fact that Disney has decided to make the movie, they have a responsibility to do it right.
I don't know, though, their response. I don't know if that decision is in response to his comments or if that was already in place. If they were just going ahead and then someone said, oh, maybe we shouldn't be doing this kind of a thing. So I guess we'll find out.
That would be a sad state of affairs if it took just one interview for them to realize that.
Well, yeah. Listen, the one thing we could say from both these movies we're going to talk about, which is bad decisions are made all around. We do know Gal Gadot is already cast as the evil queen. So this is well in development. All right, well, we'll stay tuned for that one. Finally, I just have one other news item, which is we are finally getting a live action Masters of the Universe movie from Mattel, and it will be on Netflix.
There's already a live action Masters of the Universe movie starring Dolph Lundgren.
Which is probably the reason why we haven't gotten one since.
Right. They've not been able to figure this franchise out. Now, I have watched the Masters of the Universe Revelations, the Kevin Smith animated series that dropped on Netflix. I know a lot of people were mad because the first thing he does is kill off Prince Adam. But that makes all the other characters step up. And if you sit through season 2, you realize that there was a reason he does this. And shocker, He-Man and Prince Adam come back.
Because it's a cartoon.
Because it's animated and correct.
Because you can do that. It's like comic books. Nobody ever dies.
But this guy, Kyle Allen, who is also from West Side Story, has been cast as He-Man. But this is being directed by the Nee brothers, who we will talk about when we talk about The Lost City, the new, what's her name movie there?
Sandra Bullock.
And Channing Tatum. With a screenplay written by Shang-Chi scribe David Callahan. and we'll see how it goes. And that's all the news I got, unless you kids have anything to bring to the table.
I did just want to say rest in peace, Peter Robbins, who is the original voice of Charlie Brown, who passed this week.
Yes. Now, how old was he?
I don't know, but he was the one that voiced Charlie Brown from the beginning in the 60s, and those classics, the Charlie Brown Christmas and It's the Great Pumpkin and a few others, I think up until 70 or 69 or 70. So he is the definitive voice in my head of Charlie Brown. And, it's just another one of these figures where it's like a little piece of your childhood is taken away.
Yeah, it's the world we live in right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're at that age where
it's the age that we're at. Yeah, as well.
We're all at that age, unfortunately.
So I just wanted to add really quick. So I sent you guys an article this week, a Vulture Q&A with Skeet Ulrich and Matthew Lillard. But all these sort of retrospective articles are coming out now because of the new Scream movie. And in this article, I actually discovered something I never knew, something about the Scream franchise that I never knew, which is apparently at one point in the Scream 3 script, Stu was supposed to return. There's, I guess, long been a fan theory out there that Stu never died. He was bleeding and he did get hit with the TV, but you never actually saw him die. So just because he wasn't moving doesn't mean he was dead, because like Dewey's not moving, right? And it turns out he was alive. And apparently he actually got paid for the part that had been written for him, and then there were script changes. But yeah, he was supposed to be in jail in the third Scream movie. And I was so intrigued by this. I would have loved it if Stu somehow returned in the fifth movie to confront Sydney again. That would have been freaking great. Why didn't they pick that up?
Why didn't they
obviously they're making more. So they're probably I'm sure that this has been discussed in the boardroom.
It was so right now, obviously, as far as the series is concerned, Stu is dead, but this is something that was never brought up again. It was just something that was like in a draft of the script, and it never came up. But I was like, wow, because you figure, they're passing the reins now to Melissa Barrera, and you have to assume that Sydney is not going to return.
That's another hook in the next Scream movie. If Sydney doesn't return, well, what are we going to do? Well, Stu's still alive.
Yeah.
So, it wouldn't have the same impact.
But I mean, like, Stu confronting Sydney is a very different thing from Stu confronting Sam.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, I can't believe I never came across this information. And I was so excited by the idea that Stu might still be alive. I just can't stop thinking about Scream, guys.
Apparently.
Takes up all my time.
Yeah.
Well, you should write. Why don't you write the next script?
I have so many
Why
thoughts.
don't you bring back Stu?
I really do. I have a lot of thoughts about where this franchise could go.
Listen, stranger things have happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't Twilight start out as a
take it to space, like that one Friday the 13th.
Jason X?
Yeah.
But I mean, I do want to say, like,
in space, no one can hear you scream now.
Very good.
Thank you. I'm out of here.
As a little coda to our discussion last week, I do just keep thinking you have to give the whole franchise credit. As a body of work, it stands head and shoulders above every other horror franchise. When you think about where most of the other slasher franchises went in terms of their whole history and like how fast they go downhill.
This is a hill you're going to die on, huh?
Yeah. This is all I think about, guys. And I guess we have to talk about Don't Look Up.
We do have to talk about Don't Look Up.
Now, these two movies, watching them back to back, I think psychologically damaged me in some way. Don't Look Up to me is more scary than anything I've seen in the past 2 or 3 years. Because I think if this situation were to happen, like especially now, that this is pretty accurate as to and how the general populace would react to it. This entire
movie is very fascinating to me. Yeah.
I just want to mention off the top, though, like, so I like Kate Blanchett and all, but like, how does she have the time to be in every single movie? it just seems to me sometimes she's like in 3 or 4 movies a year. I'm like, does she have duplicates of herself? Is this like a prestige situation?
It's the Hermione effect.
She's the time turner.
Yeah, she does.
There you go.
I also want to give this movie credit for casting Melanie Linsky, although I would have liked her to be in a larger, less of a sort of stereotype wife type role. But I love Melanie Linsky, and I was really happy to see her.
Don't Look Up is about a comet that is making its way to Earth. So it's discovered by Jennifer Lawrence's character, Kate DiBiase, and she works with Dr. Randall Mindy, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and they discover the comet, and then they realize it is on a direct collision course with Earth. So when the movie opens, when they discover it, they've got 6 months and some odd days, seconds until impact. And for most of the movie, they're trying to convince the public that this is, in fact, a reality. And go to the president early on with very disappointing results. And so
that's one way of putting it.
Now, the president, played by Meryl Streep, President Orlean, very Trump-esque, shall I say. And her attendant, chief of staff or whatever he is, Jonah Hill, playing her son.
Her son.
So, but obviously, this is directed by Adam McKay. They are having a field day by lampooning these situations that we've actually found ourselves in, and we still find ourselves in terms of global warming and a good part of the population denying that even exists. So
apparently he was obsessed with this global warming thing, like freaking him out. And this is he secluded himself away and wrote this script because he had to get it out of his head. He wrote and finished this script 2019.
Yeah, I listened
they
to
set you did listen to the podcast?
I listened to the first episode of the podcast.
Which is just enough to get you hooked, because you're like, this guy was like so prescient, because this was playing, excuse my French, this stuff was playing out in real time. Like this was pre-COVID that he wrote this. They were filming this when, the attack on the Capitol happened, the same day that they were filming the riots. When Kate reveals that, this comet's coming and everyone freaks out. There's a lot of weird parallels going on here that were not intentional.
I do want to say, though, that it must be nice to be a privileged white man and be able to go away to a cottage in Ireland for 6 weeks or whatever while your wife stays home and takes care of your children, and have somebody come in and bring you food and light the fire for you so you can just get your artistic.
Is that what happened?
That's
here?
Exactly what happened. Yeah. He sequestered himself away.
It just reminded me of like when Thoreau was writing, he was off in the woods, right? Writing, and like when he was writing Walden, and he was like, oh, I'm getting in touch with nature. And like his mom was coming, delivering him meals and taking away his dirty laundry. So, it's hard not to be resentful as a writer who still has to like clean the house and cook the dinner. Just saying must be nice to be a privileged white man. That's all I'm saying. I think that it's obvious that he had something he needed to get out of his system. It's pretty clear from that podcast. But I think this movie tries to bite off a lot to its detriment. I think to the detriment of the pacing of the film. I think that 2 hours and 18 minutes is a lot of movie for this kind of movie, especially when you compare it to Strangelove, which is, it's hard not to compare it to it because we're pairing it. And Strangelove is like 94 minutes long, and it's so focused, right? It's like the war room, the airplane.
Yeah, you basically only have 3 sets, yeah.
The base, that's it. There's like 3 things, and then they're all happening parallel, and everything is sort of moving toward one, final moment. And this movie is trying to take down the media. It's trying to take down social media. It's taking down like our partisan divide. It's taking down like people who quote unquote collect their own facts. It's taking down like absurd celebrity culture. Although I will say Ariana Grande is adorable as a parody of herself.
How could she not be? And that's the one thing I was getting at, which is, this movie is very divisive. People either were like applauding this or slamming it. I'm
going to be one of the ones applauding it, because I thought, it's long, but it kind of plays out in real time because you're on the edge of your seat wondering, are they going to be successful? is this actually going to hit us or not?
Feel that somehow this is going to
and it's ping-ponging back and forth, back and forth. It's almost like you're reading the newspaper headlines. If this were happening in reality, what's happening today with this comet? And it brings you on a roller coaster of emotions. And like I said, I was really scared by it. I was scared by it, but not in like an emotionally engaged way. I was like, yes, this is what would happen. But there was no doubt in my mind that they were going to fail. There was it wasn't suspenseful to me. You see, even with a movie that I've seen before, something in the back of my mind says maybe it'll turn out different this time.
I mean, I actually just kept getting the sense that the movie was getting longer and longer. And I feel like it kind of hammers home the same points repeatedly. And again, like kind of to its detriment. I just think it could have been more focused and it would have been a stronger piece of art and not just commentary.
I was absolutely enthralled with this. I know Jim had texted me and you're like, it's long. I enjoyed it immensely. It is utterly brilliant and scary as all F. It is depressing. It's a descent into madness. These two characters are basically Alice in Wonderland. And once they leave their little safe haven of this telescope and they go out into the real world, it just, the characters that they meet are just so over the top, from the president to Jonah Hill to it's crazy. It's nuts. I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. And I'm a big fan of Adam McKay's The Big Short. If you've ever seen The Big Short, it's basically about the house bubble, the housing bubble. And it just sounds like the worst possible premise for a movie, but it's the same filming editor. So you got a lot of these cutaways and you have characters explaining to you, what short sales are and what, commodity bonds and all this other stuff. It is so well put together. And this has the same kind of frantic energy. There's a lot of this stuff. This guy, Howard Corwin, who is a film editor, like he was bringing in found footage off his own cell phone to put in here to kind of juxtaposition, these real world events that everyday life that we deal with that are now being threatened by this comet. You're surrounded by all these absurd characters. This Kate Blanchett, who we already mentioned, and then Tyler Perry, who I'm not a big fan of, but they played these two knucklehead Good Morning America type of interview hosts. And they're so over the top. It's ridiculous. They're cartoons, basically. Yeah, I was really enthralled with this.
I mean, the Chris Evans cameo was perfect, but
the Mark Rylance character of Peter Isherwell, that was one of the scarier aspects of it, where he has the president's ear because he wants to mine this comet for all the materials that they're short of for his cell phones and computers. And they're actually going to send up a mission with Ron Perlman to destroy it, which they turn around. So yeah, this whole thing seemed too plausible to me, even though it was ridiculous. It seemed completely plausible at the same time.
More and more ridiculous as it went along. The media downplaying this because no one wants to hear bad news. The idea that Ariana Grande and Kid Cudi, these characters, people are more obsessed with their relationship to each other. That's the media we live in.
But again, like the subplot with Peter Isherwell, it's like they're trying to take a swipe at big tech too. Like this movie's biting off a lot. And I just think it would have been better served if it was more focused. Look, you could take 20 minutes off if you removed his affair with Kate Blanchett. It just seemed like a pointless subplot. I'm like, isn't there enough going on in this movie? Isn't there enough personal growth happening when like you can't get people to respect the fact that there's like an extinction event about to happen?
Yeah, I felt the same about Chalamet. I'm like, is he really necessary to be in here, or they just want that cachet that the hot young actor is now in our movie?
Or they just wanted somebody who was religious so that he could give the little prayer.
But they could have done that with another character. They didn't really need him.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah.
But by the way, I do want to say, I mean, I didn't hate this movie. I was just like, why is this still going on? It just seemed like a lot. It just seemed to me, it seemed like it was all over the place. It was not suspenseful. I think that though that the ending, the very quiet dinner at home, was very, very touching. I was very, very moved by all these people coming together just to be together, but then they ruin it they have to have this comic coda ending with the spaceship. And I was like,
that was a little weird. That almost feels very tacked on, and that was the most unbelievable aspect of it.
It almost seemed like they were really trying hard to lighten the mood that they had just set up.
Right, because you basically end with the Earth being destroyed, but all the people who survive are jerks. I can't find this, but I remember in the late 80s, HBO used to run these little animated shorts in between movies. And there was a black and white cartoon in which a comet was coming to destroy the Earth, and they decided to build an ark and put all of the Earth's best and most genius people onto this ark and send them to the moon. And at the very end, they land on the moon, and then the comet hits the moon instead. And I can't find this anywhere, but I'm like, that's exactly what this is, because these idiots, first of all, I don't believe a spaceship's going to last 22,000 years to get to its destination, and you're still in hyperspace. This thing is still in operating order, but that's neither here nor there. My buddy, the first thing he asked me, do you think that was Meryl Streep's real ass? I'm pretty sure that might have been a body double, but... And then she gets eaten by a space chicken.
A Bronnerach, as they...
Is that what they call it?
But he was wrong about DiCaprio's death, though, that he said he was going to die alone. He didn't die alone.
I thought the ending was very moving, and they were all coming together, and they were clearly all just trying not to talk about the thing that was about to happen.
Yes, they're trying very hard, and that was one of the more frightening aspects as well for me. Like the ending, because the mundane aspect of it. You go to the ransacked grocery store, you pick up what's left there, and it looks like a Sunday night, and they're trying to maintain a normal conversation in the face of all this madness.
It reminded me a lot of the dinner scene in Signs with Mel Gibson.
I love that scene.
Where the family, they know that these things are outside and it's imminent that they're going to get in, and they're just trying to have the most normal of, what do you want? You want French toast? I'll make you French toast. You want fried chicken? I'll make you fried chicken. In that scene, they just lose their minds.
Well, because in that movie, the alien invasion is actually just an emotional catharsis for them to come to grips with the fact that his wife has died. These kids' parents of this kid's mother have died, and they have not confronted this. And so this outside crisis is making them confront their emotional crisis, which actually I think is one of Shyamalan's best movies, because he does such a good job of linking those two things together. Yeah. But I think that's, that might be what's missing here until the end, is that feeling that these are people who are trying to save other people. You get that from Kate, where it's like she's so visibly frustrated from the beginning.
Yes.
When she's like, we're going to die. Can you not recognize that?
I feel so bad for her character, because especially her, because she is just browbeaten, especially when she goes on the show at the beginning and she gets upset and she loses it. And suddenly she becomes a meme, like the crazy lady.
But again, yes.
Then when the president announces that Ron Perlman is going to go up and try to blow this thing up, and she says, we're going to destroy Comet DiBiase. And then Kate's right there. It's named after her, but don't blame her.
Don't blame her. There's so many throwaway stupid lines in this, but so it's like this is like the other end of Armageddon. By the way, it's just Ron Perlman, this hero.
That's one of the reviews said the lefty version of Armageddon.
Yeah. The one thing I did so let's go back to Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Professor Mindy, because he follows a very Fauci-esque arc, which is he's just a scientist. He's just throwing the facts out there, and all of a sudden he gets pushed into the limelight, and he becomes like this heartthrob, this hero to these people. Meanwhile, it should be Kate, but he of course he falls victim to it and ends up in an affair and all kinds of other crazy shit. But I had to look up, because I wanted to make sure this Planetary Defense Coordination Office does exist. This actually is part of NASA.
They tell you it is. They're like, it's real.
Well, they tell you a lot of stuff in here, but whether or not that's true, do your homework, because just because they tell me it's true doesn't mean so. Yeah, their mission is to look up and catalog near Earth objects such as comets and asteroids and potentially hazardous objects, and then let the people in power know that this thing's coming. Yeah, it is crystal clear that we as a whole are just too wrapped up in our own crap to really make any real decisions and save ourselves. We're all doomed. As C-3PO would say, we're doomed.
Love seeing that bull from Wall Street floating uselessly in space.
Wait, what do you got against that bull?
I did like it. I did think it was suspenseful.
I did enjoy it. I thought it was a perfect pairing because I watched this first and then I watched Dr. Strangelove last night. But let me ask you this, which is how many times have we seen the Oval Office in a movie? So how many times has this thing been built? Because every set rebuilds it, because of COVID protocol, they built this 10% bigger than what the realistic Oval Office is, just to accommodate for spacing or whatever. But you'd think that somebody would just build one set and then rent it out.
You mean like one of those Western towns, like
right? You want to right here,
or
right
like
here.
Every major studio should have one, right? Pinewood,
right.
The Universal lot, Warner Brothers, they should all have an Oval Office.
Every time.
I think that there's some validity to that. Yeah.
All right.
I think you should
get on it.
Go in there and this is your next entrepreneur project. Go ahead.
Oval Office rental.
rent an Oval Office.
There you go. Yes. All right.
Yeah, but as you said, critics divided by this.
Whew, boy, people are mad about this.
I think a lot of people feel uncomfortably seen by this movie.
It does cast a light.
Variety called it, like I said, the lefty answer to Armageddon, kind of angrily. Hollywood Reporter, cynical, insufferably smug satire. Dr. Strangelove, it ain't.
Ooh.
That's a nice tie-in with our next film. Climate scientist Peter Kalmus says the most accurate film about society's terrifying non-response to climate breakdown I've seen. So he wants to get his message out, apparently.
There you go. He's also building life-size Oval Offices.
I guess so, yeah.
Rent them now before the end of the world.
Okay, so how many buckets would we give to Don't Look?
I'm going 4.25 on this.
4.25?
4.25.
Out of 5. I should always mention this is out of 5.
Yes, I apologize. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was very clever. I thought it was very insightful. And as we mentioned, scary as hell. And as I mentioned before, there is a podcast. It is called The Last Movie Ever Made. And it is, if you like this movie, if you're interested in it, I think there's only like 5 or 6 episodes. Episode 5 just dropped. They're only like 20 minutes, half an hour. And it's just this whole little backstory of, McKay writing this and why he did, but it's full interview. You get all the main characters, actors, talking about their experiences because they did film this during COVID. So anyways, 4.25 for me.
This may be very uncomfortable, and I think that was the intent. I'm going to give it 3.5 buckets. It made its point very well.
Yeah, I mean, it was fine. I mean, there's like a lot of talented people like doing their talented thing. And, I don't disagree with the message of the movie. I just think the message of the movie could have been better focused, and that might have served the movie better if it was tighter, if they tried not to take, to kind of take a swipe at everything that was happening. I think that it, like I said, it would have been better served. Overall, it would have been a better piece of art. I don't know. I guess I'll say like 2.75. I definitely was like, I kept hitting the button to see how much time was left. And I was like, what else could they do here? Like I said, I kept feeling like it was getting longer and longer.
You missed
like,
the concert of the century.
I don't know. I guess it didn't move me because like, I don't need to watch a movie about this. I can just go scroll Twitter for a half an hour and like see every single thing that's in this film. So
yeah, it's kind of like a smart man's Mars Attacks, huh?
I think Mars Attacks is a smart man's Mars Attacks.
I don't know what.
I like Mars Attacks.
With that, let's go to the concession stand, and we'll be right back with Dr. Strangelove.
Refresh yourself. It's intermission time. The concession stand is open and ready to serve you.
We are about to witness the takeoff of the first manned rocket to outer space. We pick up the count. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
We're off to visit the planets. There are treats galore in the stars. Venus is loaded with candy, and ice cream is found upon Mars. Upstairs and on Saturn, when you're thirsty, it's sure it's the spot. And Jupiter's really jumping, the top one is buttered and hot. But the best of them all is the planet, where all of these treats are at hand. And that is the spot we now head for, our theater refreshment stop.
Okay, we're back. And is this the first Kubrick we are talking about? It is. We never officially covered The Shining.
No.
I believe it is. 1964's Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb is its subtitle.
That's a mouthful. I used to call it Dr. Strangelove.
Yes, you said last week. That was me with Star Wars and Tatooine. So I just...
Tatooine. Tatooine. 1964, right?
Would have been 63 if current events at the time didn't.
Yeah, this is another interesting
farther.
One that kind of affected its filming and some of its editing choices, but we'll get there.
But this has a disclaimer at the beginning that we are assured that this can happen. Don't worry. It was pretty much what. Don't worry too much about what you're about to see.
Can we make sure that this doesn't
That didn't
happen?
help me. That didn't help me at all. That disclaimer, by the way.
Well, imagine watching this during back in 64, the edge of the Cold War.
I know. In the middle of all that? Come on. I would probably drive off a cliff if I just walked out of the theater from this in 64.
You know what? We're all about the same age. I'm a little bit older than both of you, but were either of you forced to watch Failsafe in high school?
I was not.
No, I was not. You were?
Oh, absolutely. And this gave me those Failsafe vibes. And they both came out the same year, but that was a serious version of this.
Did they follow that up with the day after? This is the next day? You're going to watch the day after.
Well, I remember having to read On the Beach, which is also about nuclear fallout. But if you're talking about Failsafe, that was actually one of the controversies related to this film because Kubrick actually sued them.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. There's a whole.
They came out the same year. So how?
So what happened was he claimed that they substantively plagiarized material from Peter George's book Red Alert, which is what the film is based on, and he sued the studio, and the judge basically said, yeah, okay, it's a different movie, but it is sort of substantively similar. And so Failsafe had to hold their release date for 6 months.
Oh.
So that Strangelove would get sort of a first crack at the market.
And they were proven right because Failsafe didn't, even though it was a critical success, it didn't do well at the box office.
No, because it was too on point. It was like
I read that too. It was a very similar story, I think, to the De Laurentiis fight with King Kong in 76 with Universal. He tried to injunct against them.
On the Criterion edition that I watched, that I mentioned earlier, there's about 1 billion little interviews and documentaries and stuff. And in at least 2 of the documentaries, they talked about the Failsafe controversy.
I remember watching The Atomic Cafe in school. You ever see that?
No,
yeah, actually, I own that. I own a videotaped copy of The Atomic Cafe.
Which is probably worse than having to watch Failsafe which it's all like propaganda films about nuclear weapons.
The duck and cover bit.
My wife and I had a discussion last night. I remember vividly doing duck and cover in the hallway in elementary school.
So we weren't told duck and cover per se, but we used to regularly do these drills and they wouldn't tell you what they were for. And they would take us down into the basement, which was the lunchroom, because the only underground area in our elementary school. And they would say, okay, like you would go to the wall and kneel down and put your hands over your head. And that was like, you had to do these drills.
Yeah.
And, I think people think like, Reagan is the end of the Cold War, but they don't get that like that didn't happen until pretty far into the 80s. So like when we were kids, this stuff was
because I started looking it up because my wife is 3 years younger than me. She was born in 1970. Mm-hmm. So that would have been mid 70s that she was still doing this.
I was born in 74 and I was still doing it.
That's crazy. Yeah. Because I started looking up, it's like, oh no, duck and cover drills ended in the 60s. And I'm like, there's no possible way. Right. So, all right. So the two of us, and until I brought it up and she's like, I do remember doing that. It's exactly what Christina just said. Mm-hmm. She would go down to the basement, line up in the hallway, Yeah, and basically put your head.
They didn't say duck and cover, but
no,
but that was
what you were doing.
I think that's what we referred to. It was like bomb drills. You know, but it was we would line up in a hallway.
It's so funny.
This.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like this was just some sort of sop to try to make people feel better, but kneeling down and covering your head is not going to save you from nuclear fallout.
Nothing. It's just a kiss your ass goodbye.
My high school was actually a fallout shelter. There were like official signs like with fallout shelter. So I used to think if anything happens while I'm in school, I think I'm good.
Good. That's if you can get in there.
Not if you're on the top floor.
Right.
No, yeah.
Yeah. You're now just a shield for those people in the fallout shelter. So yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that stuff went on.
So the plot of Strangelove is there's an unhinged general, Jack D. Ripper.
Jack D. Ripper. I will tell you, the names in this movie are so. I enjoyed this so much. I know for a fact the first time I watched this, I thought it was crap.
As a kid, because nothing really happens. But you're on the edge. Right. I was on the edge of my seat with this. Yes. So this General Ripper, she is a lunatic. And that becomes more apparent as the movie goes on. But he has a bunch of conspiracy theories about water and body fluids and fluoridation. So he sets this whole thing in motion. He sends the bombers that are patrolling the country that have the nuclear payload in them. He sends them the codes that something has started, that a conflict has started, and that they need to deliver their bombs to their targets. He knows that nothing is actually happened, but he's doing this to rid the world of communism, is what he thinks. And the rest of the movie is the rest of the government frantically trying to stop World War III.
Brilliant. This is absolutely brilliant. Peter Sellers is the president.
And again, like when I was talking about like how tight this is compared to Don't Look Up. Yeah. So in the documentary that I watched, they talked to the editor and like various people had worked on the film. And when Kubrick and his editor had their first like assembly cut, there was like an extra 30 minutes to this movie. And they're like, this isn't paced correctly. And they went in and just ruthlessly cut out everything that didn't serve the pacing. So that this is so tight. And you do just feel like it's careening toward this inevitable
because it's
disaster.
You have unlike the last movie where you have 6 months, you have hours in this. So there is a doomsday clock in effect here.
The movie is 99% of it is people talking. Like people talking on the plane, people talking in the war room. You know, it's really just people talking.
And what you mentioned before, there's only 3 sets.
Right.
And that war room is so gorgeous and so iconic and so simplistic in its form. Even if you've never seen this movie, that's still.
Because that is by Ken Adam. He's the designer of all the James Bond movies. So that's like, the volcano layer of Blofeld and You Only Live Twice. Kubrick asked Adam if he had like done something illegal. Like, did you get photos?
Oh no, it was okay. So no, it wasn't the war room. It was actually the inside of the bomber. So that was the issue. So it turns out it turns out there is no war room because apparently when Reagan became president, he asked someone about the war room and they said there is no war room. And he said, but I saw it in Dr. Strangelove.
Mm-hmm. So if there's no war room, can you show me the basement of the Alamo?
So, but apparently when Ken Adam was trying to design the inside of the bomber, he was struggling because this is not information that's like readily available.
Top secret plane.
And he found a book of photographs from World War II. And on the cover was a shot of the cockpit of the B-52. And he saw just a little bit of the instrumentation and like some of the stuff overhead, and he basically extrapolated from that. And then some
crazy. That's crazy.
And some official type people from the US came over to take a look at the set. And after they saw the inside of the bomber, they apparently had a talk with Kubrick, and then Kubrick had to go to Ken Adam and say, I hope you didn't obtain any of that information illegally because, they were really stressed out that he seemed to know so much about the inside of the bomber. I mean, it should be pointed out, I mean, they were Marines, but George C. Scott and Sterling Hayden both served in World War II as well. Sterling Hayden, who plays Jack Ripper, he's one of my favorite actors of all time. He's in actually my favorite Kubrick film, The Killing. He was an OSS agent during World War II, which I think is just kind of amazing. And also, he was offered the role of Quint, but he turned it down.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're talking Quint from Jaws?
Yeah, Quint from Jaws.
Interesting. Well, he retired. You brought him out of retirement for this, right?
He sort of throughout his career, Sterling Hayden was just one of these guys who never loved acting. He always kind of wanted to just like get in a schooner and sail around the world. So he would sort of act so that he could make
Just
money.
Make enough money.
So that
That's a cool gig, though.
so that he could do what he wanted to do. He was a very iconoclastic individual. He's perfect as Ripper. I mean, he's 6'5". He's so physically intimidating.
Yeah. Especially next to Peter Sellers.
Next to Peter Sellers, like he just seems like this enormous presence, like pushing his will on the sort of diffident British captain, right?
I know, who's being
Mandrake
polite to the extreme.
Right, I was going to say Mandrake is a little bit of a shrinking wallflower there. So, yeah.
But yeah, the whole base shuts down because of the protocol. After he sends the code, the president sends troops in to get onto the base so he can talk to Ripper. And the base is completely, they're shooting at each other. They're firing on.
Yeah, this is crazy.
It's insane. So, and then we have Slim Pickens as Major TJ Kong. And now when I first saw this, like that was the drawing point for me was Slim Pickens, because he's the guy from 1941. And I loved 1941. I remember when I saw this when I was younger, like I was waiting for the big scene where he was riding the bomb down at the end. What is frightening as well is that there is hesitation on the crew's behalf. You do see there's hesitation, like, is this a drill or is this the real thing? But then once it's Kong that's got that steely determination, we're going to be heroes, we're going to see this until the end. When all the other bombs either get shot down over Russia or they manage to get radio contact. And the interesting thing is you never see the inside of those cockpits. You're only with this.
No, you only see the one. They can only build one.
But also it just helps with the focus of the film.
Yeah. Because like you said, that it's unspooling towards an inevitable conclusion. And it's this plane that's on its way to the end.
Yeah. And that's a little confusing though, because you only see the one plane. So you don't realize that there are multiple planes who are receiving the same.
You do, because of the big board.
No, I understand. Yes, I get the big board. I get the big board, but it's not like you only saw the one. You never saw.
But isn't there that voiceover at the beginning where it says that there's multiple planes?
It was just a you think, I don't know. Whatever.
And I love George C. Scott's character Buck, because he puts so much faith in the big board.
He is George C. Scott kills it in this movie. He is so you can't take your eyes off this guy. He is so enigmatic. He's like, I'm loving this character. And when they're asking, do you think we thought he got shot down, but it looks like he's going to survive? Do you think he can do it? And he just starts cheerleading, yeah, hell yeah, he can do it. He realizes what he's saying. There's a scene in the war room where he falls.
Yeah.
And that was on accident.
Yeah, it looks like it. It looks like he slipped and then he sort of followed through. Kubrick just thought he was doing it as part of his shtick of his character. Yeah.
So, but I can't say enough good things about George C. Scott in this movie.
He cracks me up.
Turgid. Some of
Turgidson, yeah.
But all these names are derogatory terms for Baguano.
Baguano.
Yeah, Keenan Wynn.
I know. I'm convinced now that I've seen this again, that Keenan Wynn, this is the same character in Laser Blast. It's just the same guy from Dr. Strangelove.
He's just recovering from his experiences.
The world has rebounded by the time of Laser Blast. Yeah.
One of the little physical tics that cracks me up is every time you see Buck, he's putting a fresh piece of gum in his mouth.
Yes.
Chonking on that gum. How much gum? Because it wasn't like they had big multi-packs of gum then. There was only 5 sticks in a pack. So how many packs of gum does he have in his pocket?
He's a general.
Because he chews about 500 pieces of gum. also was really, really cute in the documentaries. There are so many behind the scenes photos of George C. Scott and Stanley Kubrick playing chess, because George C. Scott actually didn't want to play the character this broad, and he had a lot of conflicts with Kubrick over it. And they did a lot of takes where Scott would play it a little more subdued, and then Kubrick would say, like, just try, just do this thing. And then he would do it, and then he would use those takes, and George C. Scott was getting pretty angry about it, apparently. But he respected Stanley Kubrick because Kubrick was like, if not a grandmaster, then pretty close in terms of a chess player. And Kubrick got George C. Scott's respect by beating him at chess nonstop over the course of
But I think over the years, he's also gone back and said that this is one of his favorite performances now.
Apparently at the time he was not happy.
Well, at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, his expressions are so broad.
Yes.
And again, like even just
which is funny because you don't normally see him in that type of a role. He's usually very stoic.
And I just love seeing Scott holding his tongue as he's being admonished by the president. You could just see him simmering there. One of his lines, only 10 or 20 million casualties, tops.
Yeah. Well, I think that, Peter Sellers enjoyed playing Mandrake and he enjoyed playing Strangelove because those are the chances where he got to be broader. But I think he's actually funniest as the president.
Oh, yeah. That was my favorite of the three.
Yes, the phone, because he's so like
he's so
together.
serious.
Yes, correct. But the conversation when he's on the phone with the premier from Russia, Dmitry.
Yes.
And again, you don't know if there's anybody on the other end of the line because all you're hearing is his. But he's like, yes, Dmitry. Yeah, you think you're upset? I'm upset.
It went a little funny in the head, Dmitry. You know how this happens.
He went and did a silly thing.
Right. He went and did a silly thing. And then he says, I love it when he's like, I'm capable of being just as sorry as you are.
Yeah. I read that he was supposed to play
Slim Pickens bar.
Slim Pickens bar. Broke his leg.
Mm-hmm. He didn't want to do it. Actually, I mean, it was.
He purposely broke his leg?
No, it was sort of seen as like a thing where he made an excuse not to do it because he didn't want to do it. It's already a lot. I mean, he's in every frame of the film basically, except for the plane scenes. And he felt 4 characters was a lot. He was concerned about doing the Texas accent. But he just didn't want to do it. Like 4 characters is a lot. Yeah. And he felt it was too much. And him and Kubrick had quite a few arguments about it. And then he broke his leg. And then it was just like, nope, I can't do it.
Yeah. Columbia wouldn't finance this unless Sellers played multiple characters.
Right. It was because of Lolita. Because
they were convinced that the success of that movie was because he interpreted many other different people in that movie. But
he got paid $1 million for this, which was 55% of the budget. So they put a lot of stock behind him.
I mean, he did play 3 characters. He's doing the work of 3 actors.
The Kubrick's famous quote, which is, "I got 3 for the price of 6." Yeah. So I think he felt he overpaid. When you talk about this is a film debut of James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I had no clue that he was in this.
Do you know how he got cast? It was actually George C. Scott was in Merchant of Venice. And Kubrick came to look at George C. Scott to see if he wanted to cast him in the film. And he happened to see James Earl Jones, who was playing the Prince of Morocco in the same production. So that's how he got cast in this film.
You just get a sense of like the fun that is had, not just by the cast, but by Kubrick himself, just starting with the opening titles, with the 2 planes copulating in midair, with the romantic music going on. Right.
Yeah, that is like open lovemaking right here, and it's like, all right, this is they're setting the tone right here. This is what we're. I will share with you right now my favorite fun fact that I discovered about this movie, which is that stock footage was also used in Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
That stock footage, the second unit, they spent 3 weeks shooting in the Arctic Circle, like in Greenland and Iceland. Mm-hmm. And the DP said one day it was so cold that they opened the camera and the film had actually like literally turned to dust. Like it just like disintegrated because it was so cold. And the wife of I can't remember if it was the wife of the camera operator or the DP, but she said they were in the plane at one point and they were flying over Greenland and they accidentally flew over like a US military base.
Yep.
And they
were forced to land.
And she was like, we were forced to land, and the pilot's going like, there's nothing there to land on. And the US
pull over
them like pull back like, and he's like, we're landing on like a fjord in the middle of nowhere.
Yep. They were suspected of being Soviet spies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know, it's crazy.
Welcome to the Cold War, my friends. Yeah. I did read shortly after the filming, Peter Sellers suffered a massive heart attack and was clinically dead.
For 2.5 minutes. You know, it's so crazy when you look at Peter Sellers, like when you look at him and being there, he looks so old, right? But he was only 54 when he died. He aged so prematurely. The heart attack really impacted him a lot. And then of course he ultimately did die of a heart attack. You know, it's such a tragedy because he is obviously such a talented person. From what I read, not a great human nor a great family man, but obviously a great actor.
We just saw him in Get Back. He showed up to hang out with the Beatles and they dismissed him. They didn't even acknowledge him.
There's another Beatles tie-in that I read that I thought was interesting, that they used some of the footage that they filmed above the clouds for Magical Mystery Tour because the same editor worked on both. And they were lacking some aerial footage for the song Flying in Magical Mystery Tour. And the editor's like, I know, I've got access to this footage here.
I've got some stuff.
Kubrick wasn't happy. And he called to complain to the editor, but it stayed in. It stayed in Magical Mystery Tour.
Sorry, I already filmed it.
The pocket radioactivity counter that Strangelove uses was actually a publicity promotional item that they sent to movie theaters when the film first came out. Wouldn't you love to have one of those?
That would be cool, right?
It's like, what is he calculating here with his dial?
Yeah.
Wow. I really enjoyed those Ripper and Mandrake moments together. And even after Ripper takes himself out and Guano, now Mandrake's trying to convince him he's got to contact the president, and he goes to the payphone. He doesn't have enough change.
And he actually said, I love that. Is Bat Guano? Is that your name?
Bat Guano? Right. Can I call the president collect? Can I call him collect? Yeah. And he goes, shoot that Coke machine. And I'm like, I saw that Coke machine before. He went on to the Monkeys movie. Yeah. He goes, you're going to deal with the Coke company after this.
Speaking of the Mandrake scene, the scene where Sterling Hayden reveals to him his conspiracy theory about fluoridation and how he denies women his essence.
I'll tell you,
that's a real conspiracy.
Which is a crazy monologue for a film from 1963 and, released in 64. But this is like boundary pushing stuff.
It's very funny to watch that with my 15-year-old son. And he was like, what? And I'm like, and I love explaining what he means.
He's like, I didn't.
He's like, oh, okay.
Oh.
And then he goes on to admit that he feels fatigue and emptiness after having sex.
Don't we all?
And it's because of this fluoridation, right? That's what he blames it on.
Yes. No, he's so brilliant in this. And I just can't imagine anybody else in this part. He's so perfect. And he's just playing it completely straight. Have you ever seen a commie drink a glass of water?
And that one shot where Kubrick hangs, is looking up at him, you can see up his nose.
Oh,
and
the nose hairs.
It makes him look more insane than he would have anyway.
Yeah.
But shall we talk about the alternate or the cut ending?
Yeah, I want to know about this because this is interesting.
So they had this cream pie fight ending,
which is very Three Stooges-esque.
There were a few reasons why they cut it. One of them was because of the proximity to Kennedy's assassination, because the president gets hit in the face and someone makes a comment, something to the effect of like, our dear president is been hit or something like that. They thought that was inappropriate. They also said everybody just started laughing.
Oh, it's got to be a blast doing a movie like that, doing a scene like that.
So it really ruined the tone. What they wanted was kind of like, everyone to sort of be straight faced. But
and angry, right? They're actually
Yeah.
fighting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
but nobody can be straight faced when they're throwing cream pies at each other.
No.
So everybody's just laughing, and then it's like that's a one take situation, right? Because you only get so many cream pies.
They did actually manage to pull this off in the Two Tribes video by Frankie Goes to Hollywood several years later.
But also ultimately Kubrick just felt it didn't, it wasn't tonally the ending that he wanted. And like I said, he cut a lot out of this movie. Like he had a very clear idea of what he wanted the tone of the film to be, and he just felt it didn't suit it.
You can actually see that ending if you go to the London National Film Theatre and request it. Otherwise, it's only been shown once, I think, in the 99 screening. There is a YouTube video, and they talk about this scene and why it was cut, and there's stills. There's a lot of stills from that. Did either of you read that there was a sequel that was written?
I did see something about this. Yeah.
He had intentions of Terry Gilliam in mind to direct.
That would have been a completely different kind of
Son of Strangelove. So
And
what
it
he
would have been
done is
people in the
followed up-
mines, right?
Yeah,
People in the
'cause
mines.
They talk about that. Yep. Well, we can survive if we all go down into these mines that we hide out for 100 years.
I think it would have been a completely different kind of film, but probably an
Oh, yeah.
interesting one, because I've consistently found Terry Gilliam's work interesting, even if I don't always like it.
Yep.
So this was a box office hit. It cost just under $2 million to make, and in its initial run, it made close to 4.5. So it doubled its budget. So it was a hit, and obviously it's a classic to this day. It amazes me though that this came only 4 years. This was released only 4 years before 2001. And the visual leaps and bounds that took place in between those two movies are phenomenal, because you're looking at this. Yeah, it's obviously a blue screened plane, a model plane that's they're filming against a blue screen in a lot of these scenes. And like comparing that to what he did visually only in the same decade, years later with two, it blows my mind. That was just
I think
me.
the interesting thing about Kubrick is that you can really, there's such a long time between most of his films, and that time keeps getting longer and longer, like as his career goes on, right? So it's like by the time he gets into actually shooting the film, I feel like he's really refined what he wants the film to look like. And it was sort of interesting to me because some people who'd worked on the set said that, he was very open, like to other people's contributions, and that he is sort of more collaborative than people give him credit for, but that he always had a singular vision of where he wants the film to go. And he's sort of willing to take your input, but only if it serves where he wants the film to go. He started out as a still photographer, so always like the framing of
Visual,
images
yeah.
is so important to his style.
That's evident here in this, by the way, very much so.
All right. How many buckets would we give to Dr. Strangelove out of 5?
I'll go 4.5.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I would go 4.
Mhm.
4 buckets for me.
This is I know it's it's a given that this is a classic, but when you watch it, you realize why. This is solid entertainment. I think we need to resurrect our confessional question for this episode,
Why?
because I'm curious to know if we really did have 6 months left to live, what would you do? Would you just continue doing your day to day? Would you decide to travel, sleep in, or just eat your face off? Which I think I would do. I think I would just eat fried chicken every day. I would be a gluttonous pig.
I would probably travel. I mean, I think I would want to see as many things as possible.
Do you think it'd be possible though? Like,
Well, if
everybody knew 6 months.
I was going to say, would society break down, and would we be able to do anything?
No, I hate to say it. We're probably closer to Don't Look Up, which is a lot of people would be in denial. A lot of people would be freaking out, and you'd just be somewhere in between.
I think the problem is that if you're not a part of the bureaucracy who can make the decisions, right? And in Don't Look Up, you see how like really all of society is held hostage to these people making bad decisions.
But do I stop going to work?
I would not go to work.
Yeah, no,
Right?
I wouldn't go to work.
Do money becomes worthless
right? It's
To a certain
meaningless.
degree.
Yeah.
But you still want to be able to live those 6 months.
I'd at least sleep in every day. Let's put it like that.
I like that. I'm going to have that second egg sandwich for breakfast. Would you stop running?
Would I stop running? No, because I like it. I don't do it for.
Well, there's a lot of people who exercise because they feel they have to.
I run because I like to run, and because for me, it's meditative. I'm sure I would still run. Also, you need the ability to run from freaking crazy people. I'm going to be.
That is true.
I'm going to be set for the apocalypse.
But where are you going to run to? I don't know.
Away from the mobs.
Yeah, I think we'd probably just leave here, Westchester altogether, shoot up to the condo and just make a fire every day, chill, keep your Christmas tree up year round. Just enjoy life. Well, hopefully we'll never have to figure it out.
Yes. So what are we doing next week?
What are we doing next week?
I hear that it's going to be a nightmarish week.
Yeah.
Is that we're finally going to talk about this?
Yeah, we've been waiting for it to hit streaming. Nightmare Alley is what we're covering.
Is this about a freak show? What do we got going on here?
I don't want to spoil you because I've seen it already. And I've also seen the original film, and I've also read the book, so I don't want to.
Oh, man, she's coming fully loaded. I don't even have to do any homework. I'll just show up.
The bonus to having seen it already is that Christina has special insight as to what might pair well with Nightmare Alley. So what have you chosen for us next week?
So this is a little bit of counter-programming because Nightmare Alley is a serious film. I'll just say that much.
Okay.
It's tonally, it's serious, but it is about a con man. And so I picked some con man counter-programming and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Another Frank Oz classic, and he is not thought of as a director, which kills me.
Yeah. And
I think this film really encapsulates his very cynical worldview.
Hey. Well, listen, you got to think of it this way. He has left a legacy, Frank Oz. If Mel Blanc directed Raiders of the Lost Ark, we would still remember him as the voice of Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
I think.
It's true.
Because Nightmare Alley is being re-released in theaters in a black and white version.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recommend that? I guess it doesn't matter, right? I guess whatever version I get my hands on, I watch. Because it is going to be on HBO Max. Is that correct? That is where it's
I think the color version of the film. And I'm not sure when the black and white film is actually coming out. I actually just saw that it's going to be at the Music Box in the black and white version. It wasn't there in the color version. But I'm not sure when it's going to be there, like 2 weeks from now, I think. So you may not even be able to get there. I don't know. One of the things that I think works in this film is actually the use of color. So I'm not sure how it would be in black and white.
But yes, so next week, Nightmare Alley and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. So
now you know what you got coming up. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thanks, everyone, for listening, as always.
Next week, and thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIConfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
Listen, we need a head that looks like Yoda. I'm all over it.
The, like,